Wavelength.
Just because we're doing our lectures online doesn't mean that we need to then retreat and make life, all about being alone.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide.
I think there's not enough knowledge around the severity of the long-term impacts that a concussion can give you, and it's not really educated enough.
You should be having.
The minimum job search requirements is definitely problematic, and it is up to a computer to decide whether you receive your payments each month.
This is Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm Grace, and how weird would it be if I didn't say that Cass was here as well?
Oh my God, I'm back. Hello. Before we jump in, we do need to acknowledge that we're recording Wavelength on the land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pay respect to elders past and present.
We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations. We're back to our regular show after our jam-packed Fringe show. If you missed it, how dare you? But the podcast is up now wherever you like to listen to those.
And give it a listen. My mum listened to it. She went up Mount Lofty a couple of days ago and she listened to it. The boyfriend did as well. Get all your family too. Just actually fall asleep and put it on. We would really appreciate that if you just had it running all night.
Just to get the listens up. You don't even have to be conscious.
But it doesn't mean that tonight is any less special because we are back to regular programming. It is going to be massive. Macenzie is speaking with Adelaide musical duo Electric Fields. Trevor is speaking with My Lover Cindi. And guess what, Grace?
What?
There's more than that. Oh. There's more coming into the studio.
Cass, I never would have guessed it, even though I know exactly the structure of this show. We also have Jasmine running us through sun safety and how it's affecting young Australians, and that will be part of our Wavelength Explains.
How exciting. But right now, we have one of our newest Wavelength recruits. Alecia is speaking with the Lord Mayor of Adelaide.
Take it away.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
The news has showcased that several hospitality and club establishments have closed across Adelaide. Why is this?
Well, I think that there's always a change in the landscape with the night economy. Businesses come and go, and we're used to that. It's been happening since time immemorial. One has to go and look at not what happens in a couple of weeks or a few months, but what happens over time. And I think there's definitely been a shift in people's nighttime activities over the last 25 years. And I think there's inevitably going to be a bit of a shake-up in the nighttime economy.
Due to the cost of living and beer tax, consumer spending patterns have shifted. What can consumers do to support nightlife businesses?
Well, I think that consumers have to support themselves. I think it's naive to think that young people or people with financial woes are going to be trying to spend their money in a way that keeps other people in business. So I don't think that's a viable option. But the reality is that there is a financial crunch at the moment. A cost of living crisis, interest rates are rising, rents are going up. There's been relative salary stagnation, and people's salaries haven't gone up to match the increased cost of living. So that's on the side of the consumer. And for the operator, clearly all the utility costs have gone up, insurance costs, rents, rate. On top of that, of course, there's been a change in the excise duty. So there have been a lot of issues on both sides. But if you look at the industry sector globally, this is not just Adelaide.
Are there any specific local government initiatives to support the recovery of nightlife industries being discussed?
At the end of the day, you can't fight the economy. And I know that there are some people that want subsidies, grants, rate holidays. Everybody always wants everyone else to be subsidising them. That's not altogether an easy option for us, because whilst a lot of businesses are struggling, it's pretty tough to redirect one group of ratepayers' money to subsidise another group. However, the council has spent and invested over the last 5 years a significant amount of money in subsidies for venue upgrades, shopfront upgrades. We've invested money in a thing called Renew Adelaide, which gets operators rent-free into premises while they establish their business and assist them in that move. And that's been very effective in maintaining occupancy in the businesses both on the ground floor and above ground floor, because it's given the innovative, new and exciting business operators just a bit of a leg up. So we do those sorts of things. The other option, of course, is to increase the population in the city. clearly you need people to spend the money. And whilst a lot of people come into the city, it always helps to have more residents. And our goal is to effectively double the number of residents in the city.
Do you have any concerns about the potential implications their closures have on our unique Adelaide community?
Well, I think that there are different implications in different ways. I think that one doesn't want to have the lights out. That's the first thing. Because if we're promoting the city as livable and we're marketing it as a destination, you have to have nightlife. But it seems inevitable to me we might have a different form of nightlife, and it might be concentrated in different places. So I think that we've got to recognise that there is always disruption, innovation and change in every marketplace.
Spiking the combos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks for that, Lord Mayor. Back on the show again, and Alecia, of course. Now, it's, I think, really interesting to see the shift that we've had, especially post-COVID and cost of living crisis-wise, to what's happening to our hospitality and, like, club music industry. It's such a shame that we're not getting the rates that we should with inflation, so we can't enjoy our money the ways we need to, because we need to be borrowing it away for hard times. And of course we want to support these industries, but they're out there waiting now, unfortunately, not later. So they're not going to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. And there has been such a significant shift. I think even if you're a festival goer like I am, every time I speak to someone about this, they always agree with me that there has been a shift in crowds as well. And I think that now we're seeing that. I really noticed that probably last year or the year before, but now we're seeing that come into clubs, especially on Hindley Street. And with them closing down, alcohol taxes obviously come into it. But it's also just like a significant change. I mean, personally, I used to be a bit of a club girl myself, but I love going to a pub. I love going to a bar.
Yeah.
But it's going to be different. It's going to be a different Hindley Street, I believe.
I'm noticing, which I've heard a lot of people mention as well, a lot more people in there, and they're not having, the fun chats in the toilet lines, the bar lines. Everyone's got their phones out. Yeah. And they're texting like, come meet me at the spot. That's how they're making their friends now. And it's a interesting shift. I don't want to necessarily paint the narrative that it's good or bad, but it's going to be different moving forward, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I think it will be good to see, like the industry isn't dead. I don't think that it will ever be dead. I think that people will always want to go out and party. I think it will just be interesting to see in the next coming years how that changes.
What it looks like.
Yeah. And Adelaide is such a hospitality driven place. I have family up in Queensland and, all around Australia, and every time I speak to them, they're like, there is just no place that has the kind of festivals that we do. Firstly, obviously our Fringe episode really highlighted that, but also just like the bars, the cool restaurants, the cool brunch places. You could go to a single one every single day. I think it would take you years to get through, and you'd have some great food along the way too.
Oh my gosh, truly. We're really spoiled for choice here in Adelaide, which we've said 100 times before. Yeah. And we're keeping this conversation going because right after the break, we've got Trevor speaking with My Lover Cindi about clubs and etc. closing across Adelaide. But right now, you're on Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Just before the break, Alecia had a chat with the Lord Mayor about why she believes venues are closing. But just like we do every week, we want to dig a little bit deeper. We have Trevor chatting with Kate and Rachel from My Lover Cindi.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Hi there.
Why do you think more entertaining venues such as bars, pubs, clubs or other entertainment venues have closed down or are on the verge of closing down?
Yeah, I think that all of the operators in Adelaide are facing the same sort of issues at the moment. There's obviously huge increases in the cost of those kind of overarching things like insurance, wages, all of that kind of stuff, utilities, and also people just have less money to spend at the moment.
Rach here, I'll add as well, some of the operational impacts that might be affecting venues like ours would be a really tricky landscape around insurance. At our end, we had about a 3-week notice period, just a week out of Fringe Festival, so we were just crossing everything that our insurance policy would be renewed with very, very little guarantee. So it's not uncommon to see hospo venues, particularly licensed late night spaces, shut down quite suddenly. And from what we understand, a lot of that is also about insurance.
What makes My Lover Cindi stand out to the others, and how have other businesses supported you, and how have you supported them?
Yeah, I think what's really special about My Lover Cindi is our community feel. We have just so many patrons that come in really regularly, and they know us and we know them. As the business owners, we work behind the bar, we do all the programming, we clean, we're kind of on the ground, so people get to know us, and it feels like just a big community.
And I think another point of difference, Rach, we have a really strong focus on accessibility. So if you know anything about our venue, we opened to answer to a real limitation, a real lack of particularly wheelchair accessible night spaces in Adelaide. And that's been a driving force behind us ever since we opened. You know, we haven't always got it right, but our venue is wheelchair accessible, and that access stuff is more than even just the wheelchair access things. We have a lot of sober options for people who don't drink. We have some spaces in the venue that are good for people with sensory issues. So it's definitely a bit of a point of difference. And in terms of how we've supported other businesses and how other businesses support us, the Adelaide Hospital community at the moment is a really tight-knit community, especially operators our size who do a lot of things similar to us, and we do things similar to them in regards to, you know, being on the ground and being behind the bar and cleaning the venue and things in small business land. So, you know, semi-regular check-ins with a couple of other operators who are also going through it, so we can, you know, throw some ideas around, chat about what's working for them, chat about what's working for us, and also chat about some of the barriers that we're all facing at the moment, and just having a real solidarity, in our experiences, particularly at the moment.
With the recent concerns about the rise of beer tax, as a licensed venue, how are you able to ensure a profit but still ensure a great time?
Yeah, I think for us, you know, the beer tax is one element, and it just all adds up with all of the other costs that are going up as well. So it kind of all has come at the same time. Something really fun that we've just started doing is something called Beers for Queers, where it's sort of a pay it forward model. So people who maybe aren't wanting to go out at the moment, or who are busy doing other things, are able to buy Beers for Queers on our website, and then other people that do want to come into the venue and do have capacity to do that at the moment can visit us and get a beer on the community. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're just trying to be a little bit creative, I guess, in answering to some of the problems that we're all facing at the moment. And if there are some people who, you know, do have a bit of disposable income but, you know, don't necessarily have capacity to go out, while there are people who want to participate but can't afford to, this sort of model really answers to that quite nicely, and it means that we're also getting some income over the bar too. So it's a bit of a win-win situation. It's been really nice. It worked really well on the weekend, and we'll probably keep that going for a while.
Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Trevor and Kate and Rachel. It is so interesting. My Lover Cindi, if you guys haven't been there before, it's a really interesting vibe. It's fantastic. It is so unique in the best possible way. It's an LGBTQI plus bar. It's also super accessible, like they mentioned in the interview, for people with wheelchairs, people with a whole bunch of sensory issues, or any kind of accommodations. They are so welcoming, which is fantastic. And we were just saying off air, I genuinely think that this is a really disservice, that their future is really uncertain.
It is. It's such a safe space for so many people and minorities in the community that have taken so many things into account that should be necessary everywhere, but they're not. Yeah. And that for trying their hardest to create this safe environment that they can't potentially continue to operate is a really sad thing for the community. So we can only hope that we can rally together enough to stop that from happening. But then again, it's not one person's responsibility. We can only hope that the cards are on the table that mean that we can continue such a gorgeous space in Adelaide. Yeah, absolutely. And I just looked it up. In 2024 alone, 9 hospitality businesses have announced their closures. A lot of them saying that it is cost of levies. Yeah, cost of levies, yep. I do think that there's so many things that come into play, like you've just said. I think having these conversations are really important, and keep going and supporting your local businesses if you can. Obviously, it's difficult, but if you're thinking about having a good night on the town,
My Lover Cindi is a great place to go, or go anywhere. Just have a little bar crawl. Maybe we'll just do a full Adelaide bar crawl and everyone can go and then everyone will be happy.
A Wavelength bar crawl.
A Wavelength bar. Who's coming? Text in right now 0428 927 927 for our bar crawl. We're taking you on a ride.
For our dream list, let's go. Enough about our dream pub crawl. Right after the break, Macenzie chats with Adelaide-based duo Electric Fields. You're on Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. Before the break, Trevor spoke with My Lover Cindi, but right now we have SA duo Electric Fields speaking on all things Adelaide Festival with Macenzie.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
We, Zachariah and I, are Electric Fields, and we have written very many songs over the last 7 years, and they're all very diverse themes and storylines that we have orchestrated for multiple symphony orchestras around Australia, and we're bringing it to Adelaide for the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra. And it's an event that is bringing music, art and climate change stories together. So it's called Floods of Fire because it really wants to focus on the connection between humans and, the land that has birthed us, and, how we really need to look after our mother because we only have one.
Obviously, Floods of Fire focuses on climate change. How was this made with the audience and the community in mind?
Well, I think with our songs, and just especially for the song we submitted, the Lija Lija Di, Mayo Kujuba Inma. So it's a song that comes from the APY lands, and it is a song for the environment and for the echidna and the way it moves and just its love. Using the song line really is a wonderful thing to showcase. And we've been doing songs, and we write for the movement of environments and how the human psyche operates and how there is a lack of understanding between the two. So we, as the creative people, we write through those. We don't have love songs, so we do write for more of the mind and land and how our perspective on it and our respect for it, if that makes sense.
Floods of Fire is a collaboration between Adelaide Festival and Electric Field. How did this collaboration begin?
Well, the collaboration actually began very, very long ago. A beautiful man named Guy Ross, who used to work at the Adelaide Symphony, had a meeting with us 7 years ago, basically after we released our first EP, and he could hear something in the music. Around about 5 years later, when Guy Ross was working for the Melbourne Symphony, that's when we began performing with symphony orchestras, and we've since performed our music with the Melbourne Symphony, then the Sydney Symphony Orchestra at the Opera House, and then the Canberra Symphony, back to Melbourne Symphony, and now we've finally come back home to perform with the Adelaide Symphony, which is a seed that was planted, like I say, 6 or 7 years ago by Guy Ross. And they have, the creatives at the Adelaide Festival has tied it into the theme of climate change because, like Zachariah was saying, we do sing about all this, connection, not only to spirit and our minds as individual and as a community, but all of that occurs on the land, and especially with some of the traditional songs that we've brought in from the law women of the Mimili community. You can't really separate the land from us because we come from it. And in a modern context, the urgency of caring for our environment is just, it will become our new way of interacting with our mother because, unfortunately, humans are pretty stupid when it comes to, sustainability, and it just feeds into what matters for the community now. The global community and definitely the Adelaide community, we need to look after our environment to the point where we can, it's a major theme for Floods of Fire.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Electric Fields and Macenzie. We have actually learned something pretty cool, Cass, haven't we?
Yes, it's very, very cool. Electric Fields are actually going to represent Australia at the Eurovision this year. It is the first time South Australia is having a representative on the global stage.
We'll all have to host a little watch party.
Yes, an imaginary watch party, but a watch party nonetheless. It's going to be fantastic. If you didn't see them in their Adelaide Festival show, it was all about climate change and it was just incredible, and they do some amazing things.
SA represent. We're keeping it going. Right after the break, we've got Jasmine running us through the current stats for skin cancer and how it's affecting young people in Australia, and that's for Wavelength Explains. You're listening to Wavelength here on Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having.
It's time for Wavelength Explains, and tonight Jasmine is running us through the current effects of skin cancer on young people in Australia.
Take it away, Jasmine.
Wavelength Explains on Fresh 92.7.
Slip, slop, slap, no hat, no play. For anyone that's grown up in Australia over the last 40 years, this is something that you would have heard day in, day out. But yet, as we continue into a new year, we saw that skin cancer has continued to be the third most commonly diagnosed cancer in 2023. Melanoma is a type of skin cancer that develops in the skin cells called melanocytes, and that usually occurs in the parts of the body that have been overexposed by the sun. Australia has one of the highest rates of skin cancer in the world. About 2 or 3 of us Aussies will be diagnosed with some form of it before they hit the age of 70. And I know what a lot of you may think, that you're too young for it, that because you have more melanin in your skin, you may be more protected. And while those of us under 40 think we're safe as melanoma rates are dropping, it is still one of the most diagnosed cancers. So how come in 2024, with all the research and evidence that's been provided to us about the effects of the sun, how are we still seeing such high records? Well, the 2024 Australians of the Year have a good idea as to why. Georgia Long and Richard Scollier, who are awarded this title for their melanoma research and cancer treatments, highlighted that the Aussie culture of tanning is still what is truly killing us, and especially in younger people going outside to the beach as we experience these extreme temperatures, especially in the last few weeks. Many don't consider what they're risking for that golden bronze look. It has always been a popular trend to have tan skin, as people think it represents a more healthy and beautiful look, and especially with social media's influence on young people, it's hard for them to be able to break this. So how do we break trends like these? Professor Georgia Long says that we should be using the very tool that created it in the first place.
We've got to use social media and we've got to just set a new standard. Great example is fashion. All of these things are fashion and changeable, and that's what we can do with tanning. We did it with smoking. We do it with seatbelts in this country.
And the message that we can push on social media is that tanning represents your skin cells and trauma. So what can we actually do to prevent and protect ourselves from developing melanoma? It seems pretty obvious. Be careful around the sun. Don't go trying to bake yourself for hours at the beach. Use SPF, wear hats, wear clothing that covers your arms and legs. But most importantly, teaching yourself the important lesson that tan skin doesn't represent health and beauty, but rather being cancer-free does.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Jasmine. It's a story that particularly hits close to home for me.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about this before. At only, I think I was 19 or 20 years old, I had a freckle that looked very normal that I'd tested 4 times, and it turned out, we found out later through biopsy, it was cancerous.
That is so scary, honestly.
Yeah, and I've never, ever taken sunblock or shade for granted, that's for sure. I'm a very pale girl. So I've known that being tan wasn't on the cards for me from a very young age.
Yeah, look, honestly, pale girls unite, because I'm an avid fake tan user. Bali Body girls get my pain right now. I either look tan, white as a ghost, or like the top of a tiger bread roll. But you know what? That is better than getting melanoma from a young age. Absolutely, and I would take that any day. It is so terrifying that this has been happening and that it continues to grow, especially with how hot South Australia has been.
Yeah, and our ozone layer, all the things here. Yeah, it doesn't matter how young you are or how vigilant you are with staying out of the sun and wearing sunblock. Get tested, get checked often if you can. It's so easy at your GPs these days. There are people with the correct type of checks that can look out for you. But yeah, it's really easy and really preventable.
Absolutely. Right after the break, we have heaps good news. Text us on 0428 927 927. How are you enjoying the episode so far? I'm going to jump right back into the jams. You're on Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. The world isn't always as doom and gloom as it seems. To help show us there is still some good in the world, I'm here to take you through some heaps good news.
Oh, I can't get enough of it, Cass. What's going on?
I know there's gonna be heaps good news on Wavelength.
God, it has been another beautiful and warm summer week in South Australia with Mad March in absolute full swing. Let's jump right in, shall we? The Adelaide Fringe has officially closed this weekend, but not without a bang. For the second year in a row, Heather Kroll, the director of the festival, has said that they have hit 1 million tickets sold. But the Fringe is not the only festival to have some breaking news. Adelaide Festival has broken its attendance records with nearly 480,000 people attending the festival. This year's number has almost doubled last year's, which was at 242,000 across 282 performances. But that's not all from the Adelaide Festival. They unveiled a 3.5 metre tall puppet last Friday called Little Amal, representing a 10-year-old Syrian refugee. The puppet has visited over 15 countries and 90 cities in order to bring awareness to children fleeing war globally. And in May, you'll be hearing these kind of sounds coming from Adelaide Oval. That's right, South Aussies aren't just going crazy supporting local artists. The beloved Matildas announced that they are coming to Adelaide to play China for the first time since 2019 for their last home game before the Paris Olympics. And tickets to this event, held at Adelaide Oval, sold out in record-breaking time, making it the Tillies' 13th game to sell out consecutively. Oh my god, what is that? Oh, that's right. It's the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. They rolled into the city over the weekend, including a street party on Cruiser Street on Friday and an on-track action throughout the weekend. This festival highlights the best of Adelaide's car displays, hospitality venues, and local producers. And I think that's all I have time for, but that's a whole lot of good news. Back to you guys in the studio.
Spiking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
And that brings us to the end of the show tonight. Thank you so much for listening.
Wavelength.